双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
Further considerations concerning raising the value of money, wherein Mr. Lowndes' arguments for it in his late report concerning an essay for the amendment of silver coins, are particularly examined by John Locke. To the Right Honourable Sir John Somers,
KT,
Lord Keeper of the Great Seal of England, and one of His Majesty's most honourable Privy Council, my Lord, the papers I here present your Lordship are in substance the same with one which I deliver to you, in obedience to the commands I received by your Lordship, from their Excellencies, the Lords Justices, and with another, which I writ in answer to some questions your Lordship was pleased to propose to me concerning our coin. The approbation your Lordship was pleased to give them then has been an encouragement to me to revise them now, and put them in an order fitter to comply with their desires, who will needs have me print something at this time on this subject. And could anything of this nature be received with indifferency in this age, the allowance they have had from your Lordship, whose great and clear judgment is, with general consent and applause, acknowledged to be the just measure of right and wrong amongst us, might make me hope that they might pass in the world without any great dislike. However, since your Lordship thought they might be fused to clear some difficulties, and rectify some wrong notions that are taken up about money, I have ventured them into the world, desiring no mercy to any erroneous positions or wrong reasonings, which shall be found in them. I shall never knowingly be of any, but truths and my country's side. The former I shall always gladly embrace and own, whoever shews at me, and in these papers, I am sure, I have no other aim, but to do what little I can, for the service of my country. Your Lordships, so evidently preferring that to all other considerations, does in the eyes of all men, sit so well upon you, that my ambition will not be blamed, if I in this, propose to myself so great an example, and in my little sphere, am moved by the same principle. I have a long time foreseen the mischief and ruin coming upon us by clipped money, if it were not timely stopped, and had concern enough for the public, to make me print some thoughts touching our coin some years since. The principles I there went on, I see no reason to alter. They have, if I mistake not, their foundation in nature, and will stand. They have their foundation in nature, and are clear, and will be so, in all the train of their consequences throughout this whole, as it is thought, mysterious business of money, to all those who will but be at the easy trouble of stripping this subject of hard, obscure, and doubtful words, wherewith men are often misled and mislead others. And now the disorder is come to extremity, and can no longer be plowed with. I wish it may find a sudden and effectual cure, not a remedy in sound and appearance, which may flatter us on to ruin in the continuation of a growing mischief that calls for present help. I wish, too, that the remedy may be as easy as possible, and that the cure of this evil be not ordered so as to lay a great part of the burden unequally on those who have had no particular hand in it. Westminster Hall is so great a witness of your Lordship's unbiased justice and steady care to preserve to every one their right, that the world will not wonder you should not be for such a lessening our coin, as will, without any reason, deprive great numbers of blameless men of a fifth part of their estates, beyond the relief of chancery. I hope this age will scape so great a blemish. I doubt not but there are many who, for the service of their country, and for the support of the government, would gladly part with, not only 1/5, but a much larger portion of their estates, but when it shall be taken from them, only to be bestowed on men in their, and the common opinion, no better deserving of their country than themselves, unless growing exceedingly rich by the public necessities, whilst everybody else finds his fortune straitened by them, be a public merit, that deserves a public and signal reward. This loss of 1/5 of their debts and income will sit heavy on them, who shall feel it without the alleviation of any profit or credit, that will thereby accrue to the nation, by such a lessening of our coin. If anyone ask, how I, a retired private man, come at this time to meddle with money and trade, for they are inseparable, I reply, that your lordship, and the other great men that put me upon it, are answerable for it, whether what I say be to the purpose or no, that I myself am answerable for. This I can answer to all the world, that I have not said anything here, without a full persuasion of its truth, nor with any other motive or purpose than the clearing of this artificially perplexed, rather than in itself mysterious subject, as far as my poor talent reaches, that which perhaps I shall not be so well able to answer, to your lordship and myself, is the liberty I have taken, in such an address as this, to profess that I am, my lord, your lordship's most humble and most obedient servant John Locke. The preface. Though Mr. Lowndes and I differ in the way, yet I assure myself, our end is the same, and that we both propose to ourselves the service of our country. He is a man known so able in the post he is in, to which the business of money peculiarly belongs, and has shewed himself so learned in the records and matters of the mint, and so exact in calculations and combinations of numbers relating to our coin, either already in use, or designed by him, that I think I should have troubled the public no more on this subject, had not he himself engaged me in it, and brought it to that pass, that either I must be thought to renounce my own opinion, or must publicly oppose his. Whilst his treatise was yet a manuscript, and before it was laid before those great persons, to whom it was afterwards submitted, he did me the favour to shew it to me, and made me the compliment to ask me my opinion of it. Though we had some short discourse on the subject, yet the multiplicity of his business, whilst I stayed in town, and my health, which soon after forced me out of it, allowed us not an occasion to debate any one point thoroughly, and bring it to an issue. Before I returned to town, his book was in the press, and finished before I had the opportunity to see Mr. Lowndes again. And here he laid a new obligation on me, not only in giving me one of them, but telling me, when I received it from his hands, that it was the first he had parted with to anybody. I then went it over a second time, and having more leisure to consider it, I found there were a great many particulars in it drawn out of ancient records, not commonly known, wherewith he had obliged the world. These, which very pleasingly entertained me, though they prevailed not on me to be of his opinion everywhere, yet joined with the great civilities he had shown me, left me in a disposition so little inclined to oppose anything in it, that I should rather have chosen to acknowledge myself in print, to be his convert, if his arguments had convinced me, than to have troubled the world with the reasons why I dissent from him. In this disposition my pen rested, from meddling any farther with this subject whilst I was in town. Soon after, my own health, and the death of a friend, forked me into the country, and the business occasioned thereby, and my own private affairs, took up all New York time, at my first coming thither, and had continued on to do so, had not several repeated intimations and instances from London, not without some reproaches of my backwardness, made me see that the world concerned me particularly in Mr. Lowndes' postscript, and expected something from me on that occasion, though possibly I was not wholly out of his mind when Mr. Lowndes writ that invitation. Yet I shall not make myself the compliment to think I alone am concerned in it. The great importance of the matter made him desire every one to contribute what he could to the clearing of it, and setting it in a true light. And I must do him this right, to think that he prefers the public good to his private opinion, and therefore is willing his proposals and arguments should be with freedom examined to the bottom, that if there be any mistake in them, no body may be misled by his reputation and authority, to the prejudice of his country. Thus I understand his postscript, and thus I shall endeavour to comply with it. I shall, to the best of my skill, examine his arguments with all respect to him, and fidelity to truth, as far as I can discover it. The frankness of his proceeding in particular with me assures me he is so great a lover of truth and right that he will not think himself injured when that is defended, and will be glad when it is made plain, by whose hand soever it be. This is what has made me publish these papers, without any derogation to Mr. Lowndes, or so much as a suspicion that he will take it amiss. I judge of him by myself, for I shall think myself obliged to anyone who shall shew me, or the public, any material mistake in anything I have here said, whereon any part of the question turns. Further considerations concerning raising the value of money. Silver is the instrument and measure of commerce in all the civilized and trading parts of the world. It is the instrument of commerce by its intrinsic value. The intrinsic value of silver considered as money is that estimate which common consent has placed on it, whereby it is made equivalent to all other things, and consequently is the universal barter or exchange which men give and receive for other things they would purchase or part with for a valuable consideration. And thus, as the wise man tells us, money answers all things. Silver is the measure of commerce by its quantity, which is the measure also of its intrinsic value. If 1 grain of silver has an intrinsic value in it, 2 grains of silver have double that intrinsic value, and 3 grains treble, and so on proportionably. This we have daily experience of in common buying and selling. For if 1 ounce of silver will buy, i.e. is of equal value to 1 bushel of wheat, 2 ounces of silver will buy 2 bushels of the same wheat, i.e. has double the value. Hence it is evident that an equal quantity of silver is always of equal value to an equal quantity of silver. This common sense, as well as the market, teaches us. For silver being all of the same nature and goodness, having all the same qualities, 'tis impossible, but it should in the same quantity have the same value. For if a less quantity of any commodity be allowed to be equal in value to a greater quantity of the same sort of commodity, it must be for some good quality it has which the other wants. But silver to silver has no such difference. Here it will be asked, is not some silver finer than other? I answer, 1 mass of mixed metal not discerned by the eye to be anything but silver, and therefore called silver, may have a less mixture of baser metal in it than another, and so in common speech is said to be finer silver. So ducatoons having a less mixture of copper in them than our English coin has, are said to be finer silver. But the truth is, the silver that is in each is equally fine, as will appear when the baser metal is separate from it. And 'tis of this pure or fine silver I must be understood when I mention silver, not regarding the copper or lead which may chance to be mixed with it. For example, take an ounce of fine silver, and 1/4 of an ounce of copper, and melt them together. One may say of the whole mass that it is not fine silver, but it is true there is an ounce of fine silver in it. And though this mass weighing 1 ounce and a quarter be not of equal value to 1 ounce and a quarter of fine silver, yet the ounce of fine silver in it is, when separate from the copper, of equal value to any other ounce of silver. By this measure of commerce, viz., the quantity of silver, men measure the value of all other things. Thus to measure what the value of lead is to wheat, and of either of them to a certain fort of linen cloth, the quantity of silver that each is valued at or sells for, needs only be known. For if a yard of cloth be sold for half an ounce of silver, a bushel of wheat for 1 ounce, and an hundredweight of lead for 2 ounces, anyone presently sees and says that a bushel of wheat is double the value of a yard of that cloth, and but half the value of an hundredweight of lead. Some are of opinion that this measure of commerce, like all other measures, is arbitrary, and may at pleasure be varied, by putting more or fewer grains of silver in pieces of a known denomination, v.g. by making a penny or a shilling lighter or heavier in silver, in a country where these are known denominations of pieces of silver money. But they will be of another mind, when they consider that silver is a measure of a nature quite different from all other. the yard or quart men measure by, may rest indifferently in the buyer's or seller's, or a third person's hands. It matters not whose it is. But it is not so in silver. It is the thing bargained for, as well as the measure of the bargain, and in commerce passes from the buyer to the seller, as being in such a quantity equivalent to the thing sold, and so it not only measures the value of the commodity it is applied to, but is given in exchange for it, as of equal value. But this it does, as is visible, only by its quantity, and nothing else. For it must be remembered that silver is the instrument as well as measure of commerce, and is given in exchange for the things traded for. And everyone desiring to get as much as he can of it for any commodity he sells, 'tis by the quantity of silver he gets for it in exchange, and by nothing else, that he measures the value of the commodity he sells. The coining of silver, or making money of it, is the ascertaining of its quantity by a public mark, the better to fit it for commerce. In coined silver or money, there are these three things, which are wanting in other silver. Point 1. Pieces of exactly the same weight and fineness. Point 2. A stamp set on those pieces by the public authority of that country. Point 3. A known denomination given to these pieces by the same authority. The stamp is a mark, and as it were a public voucher, that a piece of such a denomination is of such a weight, and such a fineness, i.e. has so much silver in it, that precise weight and fineness, by law appropriated to the pieces of each denomination, is called the standard. Fine silver is silver, without the mixture of any baser metal. Alay is baser metal mixed with it. The fineness of any metal appearing to be silver, and so called, is the proportion of silver is in it, compared with what there is in it of baser metals. The fineness of standard silver in England is 11 parts silver, and 1 part copper, near, or, to speak more exactly, the proportion of silver to copper is as 111 to 9. Whatever piece or mass has in it of baser metal above the proportion of 9 to 111 is worse or coarser than standard. Whatever mass of metal has a less proportion than 9 to 111 of baser metal in it is better or finer than standard. Since silver is the thing sought, and would better serve for the measure of commerce if it were unmixed, it will possibly be asked why any mixture of baser metal is allowed in money, and what use there is of such a lay, which serves to make the quantity of silver less known in the several coins of different countries. Perhaps it would have been better for commerce in general, and more convenient for all their subjects, if the princes everywhere, or at least in this part of the world, would at first have agreed on the fineness of the standard to have been just 1/12 the lay, in round numbers, without those minuter fractions which are to be found in the allay of most of the coin in the several distinct dominions of this part of the world, which broken proportion of baser metal to silver, in the standard of the several mints, seems to have been introduced by the skill of men employed in coining, to keep that art, as all trades are called, a mystery, rather than for any use or necessity there was of such broken numbers. But be that as it will, the standard in our mint being now settled by authority, and established by custom, known at home and abroad, and the rules and methods of assaying suited to it, and all the wrought plate as well as coin of England being made by that measure, it is of great concernment that it should remain unvariable. But to the question, what need is there of any mixture of baser metal with silver in money or plate? I answer, there is great reason for it. For 1. Copper mixed with silver makes it harder, and so wears and wastes less in use than if it were fine silver. 2. It melts easier. 3. Silver as it is drawn and melted from the mine, being seldom perfectly fine, it would be a great charge by refining, to separate all the baser metals from it, and reduce it to perfectly unmixed silver. The use of coined silver or money is, that every man in the country where it is current by public authority may, without the trouble of refining, assaying or weighing, be assured what quantity of silver he gives, receives, or contracts for, under such and such denominations. If this security goes not along with the public stamp, Coining is labor to no purpose, and puts no difference between coined money and uncoined bullion. This is so obvious that I think no government, where money is coined, ever overlooks it, and therefore the laws everywhere, when the quantity of silver has been lessened in any piece carrying the public stamp, by clipping, washing, rounding, and have taken off the authority of the public stamp, and declared it not to be lawful money. This is known to be so in England, and everyone may not only refuse any money bearing the public stamp, if it be clipped, or anyways robbed of the due weight of its silver, but he that offers it in payment is liable to indictment, fine, and imprisonment. From whence we may see that the use and end of the public stamp is only to be a guard and voucher of the quantity of silver which men contract for, and the injury done to the public faith. In this point is that which in clipping and false coining heightens the robbery into treason. Men in their bargains contract not for denominations or sounds, but for the intrinsic value, which is the quantity of silver by public authority warranted to be in pieces of such denominations. And 'tis by having a greater quantity of silver that men thrive and grow richer, and not by having a greater number of denominations, which when they come to have need of their money will prove but empty sounds, if they do not carry with them the real quantity of silver is expected. The standard once settled by public authority, the quantity of silver established under the several denominations, I humbly conceive, should not be altered, till there were an absolute necessity shown of such a change, which I think can never be. The reason why it should not be changed is this: because the public authority is guarantee for the performance of all legal contracts. But men are absolved from the performance of their legal contracts, if the quantity of silver, under set lead and legal denominations be altered, as is evident, if borrowing 100 L, or 400 ounces of silver to repay the same quantity of silver, for that is understood by the same sum, and so the law warrants it, or taking a lease of land for years to come, at the like rent of 100 L, they shall pay both the one and the other in money coined under the same denominations with 1/5 less silver in it, than at the time of the bargain. The landlord here and creditor are each defrauded of 20% of what they contracted for, and is their due. And I ask, how much juster it would be thus to dissolve the contracts they had made, than to make a law that from henceforth all landlords and creditors should be paid their past debts and the rents for leases already made, in clipped money, 20%, lighter than it should be? Both ways they lose 20% of their due, and, with equal justice, the case would be the same, and legal contracts be voided, if the standard should be altered on the other side, and each species of our coin be made 1/5 heavier. For then he that had borrowed or contracted for any sum could not be discharged by paying the quantity he agreed for, but be liable to be forced to pay 20% more than he bargained for, that is, more than he ought. On the other side, whether the creditor be forced to receive less, or the debtor forced to pay more than his contract, the damage and injury is the same, whenever a man is defrauded of his due, and whether this will not be a public failure of justice, thus arbitrarily to give one man's right and possession to another, without any fault on the suffering man's side, and without any the least advantage to the public, I shall leave to be considered. Raising of coin is but a specious word to deceive the unwary. It only gives the usual denomination of a greater quantity of silver to a less, v.g. calling 4 grains of silver a penny today, when 5 grains of silver made a penny yesterday, but adds no worth or real value to the silver coin. To make amends for its want of silver, that is impossible to be done.